Good evening, guys. This is Devon Evans, and this is the Band of Barbers podcast, episode 12.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've made it to 12. Tonight, we have a very special guest, my boo thing, my partner in business, my confidant, my support, my shoulder to cry on, any other thing you can use to describe her as my support. My wife, Victoria, she's here with me, and like I always say, guys, really trying to figure out this whole format, what it's going to be, things like that. We're still kind of working on it, but tonight, I was like, "Hey, you want to, do an episode with me?" She said, "Sure." So tonight we're gonna do a little Q&A. I have no idea what she's gonna ask. She has no idea what I'm gonna ask. This should be interesting. Yeah. So without further ado, I will hand it over to my wife.
Hello. How are you all? I would like to record to show that he did not ask me to be on this more than 5 minutes ago. So if it feels thrown together, you would be correct. So I don't know. I guess I'm just going to get into it. So we decided what we're going to do, 3 questions each.
Yep.
Okay. So in terms of this whole process, what has been the most challenging part of it all? And I would say, I guess, from actually starting, like, officially working to now. And that can include, like, mentally, physically, spiritually, I guess. Like, what was the most difficult part of this whole process of at least getting to this point, or, even if you feel like the hardest part is overcoming something that you haven't overcome yet?
Well, I think I'll say I have 2 answers to that.
Mm-hmm.
The first one would be writing the curriculum and the handbook and all of that kind of stuff was very difficult to me. It was a tedious process. I think I've talked about it before that although the state has guidance, it's very vague. And because it's so vague, it leaves a lot up for interpretation. And I understand that being like the barrier to entry type of thing. Like if they gave you all the answers, then there would probably be a million schools out here. I get it, but for the person who's trying to do this right and do it in a one fell swoop, or trying to have minimal mistakes, it's kind of really a frustrating process. And that kind of leads me into my second answer to the question. So my second answer would really be that it was when we were wrong, like when we were getting into the final stages. I was very nervous because we have been advertising this and people have been asking about the school and things of that nature. And so it kind of got to me a little bit because I was like, I don't want to let these people down. I want to be able to get it right the first time. And when we submitted the application the first time, it was what, 3 months, I think.
Because we did it right after
We did it
we
right after
finished the grant.
right after the grant, and so it was about 3 months that it took, and we had no ideas of what was, what could be wrong. And I'm calling after so long, I'm calling, I'm checking, no real updates, and then they hit me with all of this stuff when we finally get it back. And I'll be honest with you, I was a little upset, and I'll be honest, I was a little depressed because it was like we did all of this work, and it was like minor stuff, and I'm like, had someone just picked up the phone and called when they saw it, or sent out an email or something like that. Now they did send it in the mail, but I was really on top of it trying to figure out all of this stuff. And so the second part was dealing with the fixes to it, and those were probably some of the more difficult things. And the whole, we got a building, we don't got a building, we don't have a building thing, like those things, and I don't know if we've talked about that, but those things were like super minor to me. It was the actual curriculum piece. I knew that we were going to make whatever space we were in do what it does, but things that were somewhat out of my control, as far as like dealing with the state, that's probably been the most difficult piece.
Can I say a few things on your response there? Okay. So I guess this is kind of our first time really talking about that, in the sense of, how we felt about that whole process of submitting all the documents to the state. I was not stressed about it, at least on the curriculum side, just because curriculum topics don't frazzle me. One, because it's not like we didn't have curriculum that we were using. It's just kind of like the way the state wants all of these, what is it called? The reporting and the tracking stuff is insane. Like the things that they ask for and the things that they expect they're not the same thing. And I get it, barrier to entry. If it was easy, everyone would do it, and then you'd have a whole bunch of not good schools open. So I understand that part. But that was, I think, when we got this stuff back and it was like all this minor stuff, and it's like if they had just told us all this stuff to start with, like, yes, that was frustrating, but like we got all that stuff back, and I said, oh, that's it? What the heck is that?
We have a visitor, guys. It's a
stink bug?
We got a bug. Continue talking.
It is huge. It, like, I don't even know what he just smacked it to the ground. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I didn't see all of that as I wasn't exactly like depressed or really sad about it, just because like I'll look at like the things that I've had to do with my doctorate, or just lesson planning or putting things together, and you can go through 2 or 3 iterations of something, of fine tooth combing some stuff and adjusting things, and that's kind of standard. So looking at it from that perspective, I was like, oh, that's it. So I think, we had different, the way that we responded to the same event was very different. And we never really talked about that. Like, I knew you were frustrated, but, it was such a hectic time for me in my work that I didn't really have a whole bunch of time to talk to you about, walking you through kind of the next part and making sure that you were all right and making sure that, we could continue, because we really didn't need that much time in between getting that stuff, getting the corrections back and submitting the corrections. We could have done it in 2 days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I will say
maybe
this.
a day.
I will say this. The one other thing that was frustrating in the process, and I think it just added to the level of frustration, why, building out the curriculum and things like that, my computers suck. and so that, I think the fact that my computers are on a 10-minute delay on anything I try to do, and or things like that, that added to, I think, the frustration, because I'm like, all right, I know what I need to do, but this computer that I have is not going to work, or it's going to take me forever to do it on my phone, or how in the world am I going to do this on my iPad? Like that I think also added a level of frustration to anything that really had to do with computers, which is why, the lease stuff, things like that, the labor behind putting the school together, things like that didn't bother me, because it was really in my control, right? As long as I had the right tools, it was cool. The computers, it was like, we used her computer a lot for a lot of this stuff because my computer sucked. So if I was off or I was just sitting at home, it might take me, an hour to do something on my computer that would take her 30 seconds to do on hers. Yeah.
Yeah, we have, if you walk through our house, you'll probably find at least 10 to 12 laptops, computers, devices just sitting around. And Devon has he has really bad luck buying new computers or buying computers that suck. And I have really bad luck of killing computers. Now, keep in mind, I've got 3 degrees, so I've killed a computer basically for each one. I feel like that's fair. But Devon, I've seen him buy computers new out of the box, and they suck. I've seen him get a computer, like a one from, I don't know, what's that place that you got at? Aaron's.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen him get a computer from Aaron's, find out that it needs some work, and then it would go get sent back, and it would still suck. Like, I don't know how he has such bad luck with computers. I don't get it. Anyway.
And we aren't, just so we can, understand this, we aren't talking about cheap computers.
Mm.
None of these computers were cheap. And actually, the best computer that I have right now is a $150 Chromebook.
Yeah, a Chromebook that I got Isaiah for when he first started school, and it was during COVID. It was cheap little $120 thing, and he used it, but he didn't really use it. And I was like, that would, because he was about to buy a new computer, and I think he was looking at MacBooks, and I was like, whoa, now. I was like, calm down. Let's go see if this will work, and it's worked fine.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So.
My second question for you, dear.
Yep.
I guess in the same breath, what would you feel is the most rewarding piece of this whole thing? Or what would you say, what has surprised you, pleasantly surprised you about this whole process?
For me, honestly, I would say probably the most rewarding things in this process has been like one, um, the turnout for the ribbon cutting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you were there, like, we were like 5 minutes out from starting, and nobody was there. And I just thought, like, oh, okay, well, we over prepared. We still kind of probably over prepared just a little bit, at least in the snack department.
Yeah. Well, that's just how we roll.
Yeah,
For anything, anyway.
at least in the snack department, we probably over prepared. But for everything else, like like that was super rewarding to see that many people show up. And I think we had 20 to maybe 30
Mm-hmm.
people in and out through the time. It was packed. I'll say that. And so that was really nice for that many people to just show up in support of what it is that we're doing. So that being one, and I've talked about this before, but I really think the rewarding piece is one of the big rewarding pieces for me is the journey in the, like, I don't even necessarily really like completing a project. There's more memories in doing the project than when it's complete.
Mm-hmm.
When it's complete, like, I can look at it and be like, oh, that was great. But because I had a hand in doing these things, like, for example, the clinic floor, that was a big process. That was a big process. That was, you know, long Sundays hauling trash and doing all this type of stuff, breaking up tile, cleaning the floor, painting the floor, painting the wall. Like, that was a big process. And I have more fond memories of that than looking at it in its complete state. So, yeah. I really like I've really kind of fallen in love with the journey that gets you to the end and not just the end.
I think it's interesting that you say that because I'm the one that always gets on you about completing projects or just completing tasks. And I think it makes a lot of sense with knowing who you are and kind of the way that you do things. And I've never really seen you as like the enjoy the process type of person.
I didn't always enjoy the process. Honestly, I didn't always enjoy the process. For a long time, it was like, hurry up and get it done. And then go on to the next thing and get it done and get it done and get it done. But in hurrying up to get it done, a lot of times I had to go back and do things again because I didn't do it right.
Right.
I was just chasing the completion of something and not I was chasing the completion and not focusing on the small or the minor details that needed to be focused on. So I slowed myself down and made myself start to enjoy the journey. And that's really been since we've been married.
Mm-hmm.
So it hasn't always been that way. But once I started to develop a system in how I do things, like, it's kind of slowed the process down a little bit. So, yeah.
Yeah. But another thing, but I'll move on to my next question. I think it's really, I like what you're saying, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that this is something that I think is truly your passion project rather than a means to have business. it's something that you're really passionate about besides just making money. It's like you really have a heart for like your mission, the mission statement that you have and what you're actually trying to do, rather than just, doing business for the sake of doing business. But the other thing is that this is the most intentional that I've ever seen you operate, in terms of work. So like, we have put so much prep hours and prep time. I can't even say hours. Like, at this point, it's like months. This time last year, we were, working on kind of the beginning phases of a lot of stuff. So like, at this point, we can say, a whole year has been put into this, and we spent a lot of time, specifically my maternity leave, cough, cough. But we've spent a lot of time putting the ideas together to make sure that, things are set up and the structure and the foundation of everything has been good. How we operate, how we do things, the mission that we're trying to accomplish, how all those things tie together, embedding mentorship and all that stuff into what we're doing. You spent so much time in the background of building things up to make sure that it's really secure, that it makes sense that you're going to spend a lot of time on the back end of physically putting it together instead of just theory. Anyway, that was just what I was thinking. My last question, if you could, I always hate these questions, but if you could go back and give yourself a year from now, if you could give yourself words of encouragement, besides the cheat sheet on what to submit to the DPOR, what would you tell yourself, to motivate yourself or to encourage yourself? What would you tell yourself? Even that, in the sense of starting this whole process, or even starting the whole barber journey altogether, what would you tell yourself?
If I could go back and do it all over again, or give myself the right words, one, I would tell myself, one, don't get so involved in being, or as much time as that I spent studying the technical side of barbering, I needed to spend just as much time studying the business side of barbering. Because although I came into this world, as an apprentice with the business mind in place, there were some things that, had I pressed and really figured them out earlier, I think I would have been in a better position. Mm-hmm. And I would say document the journey, like like I'm doing now. I think that had I started documenting earlier, like, we would have like crazy content.
Oh yeah,
crazy content. I would say document earlier.
No, the content would be me being mad because because of trying to figure out, what you're saying and what you want me to put down, and all that stuff. Not actually mad, but just frustrated.
Yeah, but I think that had we kind of started earlier in the documentation.
I don't know that one.
I guess we have a third visitor today, or a second guest.
Well,
Alexa. And keep in mind, Alexa never wants to work.
Yeah.
She always ignores me.
So that's awkward. Anyways, so I would really say that documenting the journey, documenting the process, documenting what is really going on, because the like I said yesterday, like you get a lot of these entrepreneurial podcasts, barber podcasts, you get a lot of podcasts just in general that only stick to kind of one phase, right? But the ones I feel like that really do the best are the ones that really talk about the journey and the process, what's going on. Like I said last night, we can sit here and talk all day about just cutting hair and being in a shop, but let's talk about being a barber with a family, being an entrepreneur with a family, and the things that may go on while you're trying to build an empire. People don't spend a whole lot of time talking about that, and so I would document more. I would document more, and so I would we could keep track of the highs and lows and the good days and the bad days, because there's going to be both. Like, this isn't all sunshine and rainbows. It's hard. So I document more.
Okay.
And I start the process early as far as writing the curriculum. Like, when I had the idea, I would have pulled together the information then, and acted on it then.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wonderful.
that's 3 for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, if you guys have listened and you guys know kind of the story, my wife is one of the main reasons that I stuck with barbering and really became a barber, because had she not threatened to punch me in the face, I would have probably just tucked tail and ran when things got difficult. So I guess it kind of leads me into my first question. You've been with me for a while now. We've been through, a couple different businesses, locations. Like, what was your thought really when I came to you and I said, I think I want to go and finish my apprenticeship and get my barber's license?
Your barber's license. So this is when you were working.
I was just working at the juvenile center at the time. I
Right.
wasn't working anywhere else, but they had me cutting the hair.
Right.
But what was really your thought when I was like, we were the t-shirt business was hanging on by a thread.
This was mid-COVID, right? 20.
No, this is 2019.
So this was before COVID.
Yeah, this was before COVID.
Oof. What did I think? Was this pre me telling you, or around the same time of me telling you I'm gonna punch you in your face?
No, this was. I mean, we had to cut. This was. I mean, the punch you in the face kind of came from this conversation when I told you.
Yeah.
That I was like, because I think I had been cutting hair at the juvenile center for probably maybe like a month,
Right.
maybe 2 months. I had been doing it for a little while. It might have been longer than that.
And you were going on your days off, right?
I don't think at the time I was doing my days off. I think then I was coming in. I was bringing my stuff in to work with me.
Right, because you would just take the kids with you because no one had to sit with you. Okay.
Yeah.
So if anyone's wondering, like, why don't you just answer the question? Devon has been doing this whole hair cutting thing in so many phases of our relationship. If it's just cutting his hair or cutting the family's hair or cutting his friend's hair to cutting hair during COVID, which wasn't illegal because he didn't have a license and he could do whatever he wanted. Just saying, that was a thing. There's just been so many times where it's like, I'm cutting hair. It's just a matter of like whose hair, where, when, and what or how much or how little are you getting paid. So at that point, when you were like, I'm ready to officially do this, before the I'm going to punch you in your face conversation, and also for the record, I'm not a violent person, and I'm pretty sure. Okay, I'm just just making sure that people know. I think I even said like I don't actually mean I'm gonna punch you in your face, but like I'm gonna want to, because like we don't do that with each other. It's just not a thing that we do. Anyway, but I think that I'm going to be honest, I think I was like, oh God, another thing, another project that you're going to do. And it's like, there's some times where, I don't have any problem supporting something that you want to do. But, this was 3-4 years ago, right? Yeah.
It's been almost 5.
4 or 5 years ago. So this is like pretty early on in our relationship, and I don't think I hadn't started my doctorate at that point. But you were like, but I was working. I think like the backstory is like there were so many other things that were happening in our life. Like I'm pretty sure you were taking classes.
Yeah.
You were taking some classes here and there. I was doing a lot of work to help you get through your classes. And I was like, you're going to stop wasting this GI Bill. It was, and I don't want to say he was wasting his GI Bill, but like a lot of times Devon would pick up something and it was just kind of like, it sometimes would feel like kind of like fly by the seat of your pants. So it never felt really intentional. But I think with this one, I knew that he's always had a passion for it. So I was like, I think I was a little bit more willing to entertain it just because I know that it's a skill that you've kind of already built up and it's something that I know that you cared about. And it's not like you had to spend a whole bunch of money well, you did, but you could have spent a whole bunch more money trying to get yourself established to have, all this stuff kind of put together. So I think I was a little skeptical at first, but I think there was some hope there. But I mean, at the end of the day, at least in that phase of our life and our relationship, I was really okay with you kind of finding your way through it. But I did need you to start something and finish it and be intentional about it. Because there's not enough storage in the world for all the ideas that you've had. And I ain't getting another storage unit. So, did I answer your question?
Yes.
I'm sorry if that was kind of long and drawn out and kind of depressing, but I was like, oh God, another one. But it worked out, so I'm glad that. Because I don't think I've ever really been the one that's been like, no, you're not allowed to do that.
No, I mean you've gone along for the ride, but that one, I think, this journey, I think, was kind of like, ugh. I was just, like we talked about, like I was just so over you know, the places that I was cutting, people that I was, that I was cutting, it wasn't a whole lot. And things like that. Like I was just kind of over being disrespected. And that was that. We talked. If you've listened to the earlier episodes, I said that like I had a skill set that they didn't have, and I won't say that they hated, but sometimes they can be real disrespectful because I brought something to the table that they didn't have. So, I mean, I don't know. Anyways, but next question. Since becoming an apprentice, going into being a barber, going into being, an instructor, and opening a school, what has the journey been like for you in, being and dealing with me?
That's I'll say this, it's been a journey. Kind of starting off with the last question of just like recognizing the fact that it was like, you've done a lot of stuff in the past. We do have a lot of businesses that we've put up, and there's been a lot of money and a lot of time that have been put into those things. And I don't really see this whole journey starting with you deciding to start as an apprentice. I kind of see it as the first business that we did together, because I think it all really leads up into that. Because I don't think that any of the other, I think the intentionality that I was like, we have to be intentional about this, we have to be good about this, we have to make sure that we're doing this correctly, has to do with the fact that we didn't do that with the things that we've done before.
Yeah.
For me, it's like looking into that journey, like for you, when you're starting the apprenticeship, I was like, okay, I could see you doing this, and I'll let you feel it out. And then you're like, okay, so you went from working to, I'm going to be an apprentice, so I'm going to cut some hair. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And then from going there to, I think I'm really serious about going to get my barber's license. It was like, okay, so I've let you fill this out. And I say let you in like a really, supportive way. I've allowed you space to kind of figure this out on your own. You said that this is something you want to do. You're very serious about this. Okay, cool. Next step being, you have to go and you have to go perform and you have to go finish this task. And for me, like, I've had to be very specific because I was like, we've had a lot of unfinished business, and that's a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of brain power that goes into a lot of brain power and a lot of emotion that goes into supporting you through something like that. And for me, it's like I'm all in, and I think that I've shown that over the years. But it's hard to be all in on so many things when there's nothing to show for it at the end of the day. Like, it's one thing if you're going to go all in for your own stuff. That's cool. But I'm like, I still got my stuff going on. I'm still working. I'm still doing things. I'm still have a lot of things that I'm putting in, like, onto my own and keeping all these other things afloat, where it's really, like, if you're going to ask me for my time on another project, I'm going to see a return on this investment. Like, I have to see a return on this investment. You have to finish, because I cannot continue to support you in ventures if you will not see them through. And I think that was like a big, like, I knew that to be the case before you came to me about, hey, I really want to do this. Because I remember sitting on the couch and telling you, like, I remember exactly where I was sitting. And I was like, I will not do this. we can do this, but if we're going to do this, like, you have to finish. And that was kind of the backstory of like the emotions for me is like, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. And, for me, I didn't think twice about this whole, I'm going to punch you in your face if you don't finish this conversation until, you were getting closer to the end and you're like, hey, that statement that you kind of say in jest as a joke, like, that meant a lot. And I was like, oh, shoot, I should probably stop threatening you then. I don't want that to be the one takeaway from all of this. But I think a big part of the journey from telling you how serious I needed you to be to now to where we are, like, after I had that conversation with you and you say, okay, I'm serious, I'm going to do it, I never doubted you. It was like, you told me you were going to do it, and I was committed to encouraging you if I felt that you were faltering on the conversation that we had. And it wasn't even like I was going to say, you're going to do this even if you're miserable. It was going to be one of those things where it's like, you can't just give up because it gets hard. You can't just give up because you're bored. You can't give up because, you're not seeing the results in the timeline that you want. Like, you have to see it through. But you never came to me with any of that. I think, some days you're like, I feel kind of down about this, but it was all in the sense of you're approving. Like, you would come to me and you say, hey, this happened today. Like, I messed this up, or I feel really down about this. And I'd give you some words of encouragement. But other than that, it wasn't like.
There was one time early on, and the listeners know, there was one time early on where I was like, I don't think I can do this. I'm not making any money. I'm just here because I think I went through like a terrible dry spell, and I didn't really have any clients, and you just kind of encouraged me, and you were just kind of like, you're just getting started, like, give it some time, figure it out. And I'll be honest with you, that was the last I don't think I can do this moment that I had.
Well, I'm glad that you remember that, because I don't. Like, it sounds like something I would say, and sounds like maybe I vaguely remember that, but like off the top of my head, I would never remember that was a conversation that we had. But I'm glad that we had it. I mean, I don't think I would have told you any different. But I mean, like, I was never really too concerned about you being like, I'm going to give up. I mean, like, but that's just a part of learning. Like, you're going to suck unless you're a natural at something, which in that case, this really doesn't apply to you. But for the most part, like, if you're learning something new, you're going to suck at it. And that's kind of, okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to throw out some educational terms out here. The zone of proximal development is basically a phase of learning where you can only make so much progress. Like, if like the skill that you're trying to learn is out of this zone of learning, like, it's too difficult, like, you're not going to be able to push through it. So like, looking at that, like, if you're just starting out, like, you don't know what you don't know, and you have to learn what you don't know so you can move forward. And I was like, listen, you're just in that phase, and that's all that there is to it. I mean, and the thing is, as long as you're consistently learning and growing, you're always going to be in a phase of, I suck at something. And it's okay. But I think for me, the last big phase that we kind of had in this, because I feel like the whole Let's Start a Barber School was kind of like the natural next progression. Like, because you don't do just things kind of small. But before that, when you were like, hey, I think I'm ready to quit my job. I think I'm ready to quit. And I remember having that conversation with you. And I was like, I don't care if you're nervous. You need to just go ahead and do this. Like, you need to just go ahead and quit. Take the sleep, We're in a good place. I think this was like middle of COVID, right?
No.
No?
No.
COVID was such a weird time.
It was after COVID.
I don't know what we were doing.
We were out of the restriction. I think we still had to wear a mask at work, but
Yeah.
we weren't locked down anymore. It was during when they were pulling out of Afghanistan. They was during that period of time.
Oof, that was a rough time for us as a mental health part of our family. Anyway, but I really needed you to know, because like I know that was like a emotionally difficult part of time for you,
Right.
because you know, you were so doubting yourself, like, I don't know if I can do this. And I was like, you don't have any clientele because you work and you work long hours that people are going to want to come in and get a haircut. I said it makes sense that you can't build up clientele because you're never freaking available. You can only work on your days off and on the weekends. And on top of that, I was tired of not seeing you. So you can just work a regular schedule. But I remember I basically convinced you that it was time for you to quit, because you needed to quit regardless. And I think one of the things I told you is like the worst thing that could happen is that you go ask for your job back.
Yeah.
You know, and what were they going to do? Not give it to you? You were one of the, you know, most consistent people there. Plus, they couldn't keep people working there anyway. You could probably go back now and still probably, okay. Anyway, regardless, I think it's just one of those things where you were ready and I needed you to go and just do it. And then after I had that conversation with you, I was like, Lord, please let him have a good, like, it's like, let him be successful in this, because if he doesn't, he's going to run away from this completely. And then I was mad because the first month you made more money than I ever did, you know, in that current job that I had then, which was just teaching. So, a lot has changed since then. But you made a ton of money, and I was very happy for you. But I was a little jealous. I was very jealous. I'm just gonna say that. All right, I'm done.
All right. Well, we have one final question. Knowing, and it's kind of on the same lines as yours, knowing what you know now, as far as the journey, and as far as like supporting me through the different phases and things like that, what is it that you would have done different or sooner, or you know what I'm saying, like what advice would you have given me, and what advice would you give to yourself during that time? Like, you know.
To be honest, I don't think I would have given you any different advice. I probably wouldn't have told you I was gonna punch you in your face, but I probably would have, just because it was clearly very effective. I don't think I would have changed what I told you, because a lot of the times when we're having a conversation, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know, I think I've shared this with you, but a lot of the times I know that specific things need to be told to you, and I don't really know what those are. So a lot of times I'll just be like, Lord, I don't really know what you want me to say, but I'm gonna just let you talk. And a lot of the times I'll start with something, and like the most profound things will come out of my mouth. I'm like, wow, that's not my idea, but I'm glad that, you know, God placed it on my heart for me to share with you. But yeah, so I wouldn't change anything that I would told you. I think that, I think I just have always kept a air of just saying, you know, I'm going to keep my heart and spirit open to just let things come to you, like let God speak to you through me, and just kind of like leaving that open. Like a lot of times I'm just like, listen, you're gonna be fine, Um, I think I've had that conversation with you a couple times, or it's like you're overthinking this. You're fine, but I think the truly encouraging stuff is really hasn't really. I mean, it's been through me, but it really isn't me speaking. I mean, you get the point. If you're not spiritual or Christian, I'm sorry, you're probably like, this lady's crazy, but whatever. But for me, I would tell myself to just pray through it, just because I love you, dear, but you're a challenge. And I need you to know that some days I'm just like, I love you, but whew, this is hard. But I think the hardest part of it was just kind of letting you figure it out. But it's also the most important part of it. Like, I can't lead you into your own idea. And I think that this process has been the most genuine to yourself, the most respectful to yourself. I think that this is just like a culmination of so many things that are important to you as a person, and, you know, really identifies how you've grown as a person, especially as you as an entrepreneur. Like, everyone is just like everyone is proud of you, but I think a big part of people that know you know that the proudness that we have is how much you've grown out of it all. Because who you were and who you are, like, those are vastly different people. Like, the way that you approach things have changed. I don't know if you've noticed that. I'm sure you have, but you know, you've grown so much in so many different ways. But the advice I would give myself is to just let you work through it, which it's really difficult to have that much faith in just anyone, right? And I think it was just kind of like right time, right place, right person. Like, it was the right time in our relationship and in our life, and in your and our entrepreneur journey, for this to happen, for this to be what we're doing. It was the right time, it was the right place, and kind of in the same sense, like, we've gone through enough of the precursor to have the right knowledge to go forward. Right. We did the right stuff, and you as a person had done enough kind of personal development and like working on yourself and like so many other aspects of your life that you were the evolution of who you were at that moment was perfect for the task. And to have trust and faith that you could get from point A to being, hey, I have this idea, I think I want to pursue this, to, hey, I have this barber school that's open. That's a long time, and it's a lot of trust, and it's a lot of faith, and it's a lot of support. And it doesn't make any sense to say, hey, have faith that he can go do this. Like, it makes sense, but you can't just have that with anyone.
Right.
And I think that's really, like a really important piece to entrepreneurship, and just like building something from the ground up, is that you really need someone. And this is just me kind of like spitballing from how I've seen you kind of go through this. But like, if you're the one that's going and putting in the hours and the, you know, the time, you need to have someone that is going to believe your vision and believe in you. And that will also invest in the time and energy in the same way, if not more than you do. Because, you know, me supporting you has been encouraging you when you're down, listening to all your ideas. And listening can sometimes be shaking my head and smiling and nodding and saying, yeah, that's okay, because, it's a lot. But, listening to your ideas, encouraging you when you need the encouragement, but also, like, there's a lot of work that I put in past businesses and this business. And, like, surely, could you have done it by yourself? Yes. And I don't want anyone to think that she's just saying that she was the real. Well, I'm not, because I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't have put in this time if it was just me. If I thought I was the one that was going to do it, no, I wouldn't have put in all of this for that. No, it's not about like bragging rights or anything, but I think that one of the most important pieces of business is making sure you're in partnership with the right people. And I say partnership very specifically. It's kind of like we were watching The Bear, right? And they were talking about, who's your partner?
Like the TV show.
Yeah. They were talking about, like, who's your partner? Who's your partner? And they say, oh, well, my partner, they took all my money and is living in, like, the islands. And this is, like, the second iteration of this business because they took all our money. Like, who you partner with is really important. And I say that as in business partner and, like, who is your support person in a relationship. Because, like, while, in our situation, we're the same person, you can't just be a partner with anyone. You have to be on the same page, the same mindset, the same goals, the same wavelength, because if not, it could work, but it's going to be a lot harder to get through stuff. And I'm not going to say that, all the stuff that we've worked on together have been really, like, seamless, because I think the hardest part for me in this process, I don't know if it is for you, is the fact that we work so differently. So, like, when we have business meetings, I would get frustrated because he doesn't work the way I like to work. And he doesn't like to bother me because he knows that I have, like, so much other things going on with my own day job. And it's like things are all over the place. So I don't know, I'm going off on a tangent. But I would just say, getting back to the main question, have faith that you can work through it and just continue to encourage and support and, pray for you and pray for me as we go through it, because, like, you're going to get there. I kind of always knew that you were going to get there, but it was just a matter of, like, when and how long. But I knew that you were going to get there. It's just a matter of kind of just saying, hey, don't stop, keep going, until you did. But I will say, I've never been more proud. So I'm done talking. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Guys, this is the longest episode yet.
I'm sorry. I talk a lot. When you get me going.
I think, we pulled a lot of good stuff. You can pull a lot of good stuff out of this episode. And, again, this is really just us being real. Like, I'm sitting on the edge of the bed right now. Like, this is how we're recording this episode. Like, this is us being real. This is us holding each other accountable, to what's going on. Like, now that my wife is aware of what I'm doing, she's like, yeah, just do it. Just, we can do it in here. We can, whatever. So it really, really helps. And, like, that, like she said, like, that partner piece is super, super important. But I will say one of the things that I want to touch on before we close out is, even if you have the right partner, when I met my wife, I knew that she would be a good partner. You are still going to have to learn how to communicate.
Mm-hmm.